When it comes to shearing, the art of having your combs and cutters sharpened correctly to obtain a precision cut is the most important segment. Blunt cutting equipment leads to many problems, including heat buildup and slower shearing. A good handpiece with correctly ground gear will lead to easier and faster shearing. This video will show you a step-by-step proven technique for getting the most out of your Heiniger combs and cutters. About the grinding disc. A grinding disc is shaped like a cone. It has a fall from the middle of the disc to the outside. If you run a straight edge across the diameter of the disc, you will see the fall. Because of the fall or cone shape of the disc, there is a high spot formed along any radius on the disc. This is where the hollow is shaped into your comb and cutter. In steps to come, you will see that a grinder and pendulum are set so that the comb and cutter are ground across a radius of the disc. Before we can do any sharpening, we need to ensure our discs are clean and have new grinding papers set using the double-sided clamp plate. Using the grinding spanner, undo the nut and washer and lift the disc off the clamp bolt. Make sure your discs are wiped clean and dry from any foreign matter. You can also use warm soapy water and a brush if needed. Lift the center clamp plate off disc 2 and remove the bolt. Do not use any petroleum-based solvents to clean your discs. Put one washer onto the clamp bolt, followed by the grinding disc, grinder side up. Note that both discs are the same, so it doesn't matter which order you use them. If you are doing this on a concrete floor, make sure you place a cloth or similar underneath so that the discs are not damaged. Evenly spread approximately 20 ml of glue in a spiral motion, then use your fingers to spread as evenly as possible. You will need to do this quickly in warm weather as the glue can dry fast. Be careful not to use too much glue because this can cause the emery to lift and bubble. Put the coarse emery smooth side down. Note, do not spin or twist, as this will also cause bubbles or lifting. Next, put on the clamp plate. Note, do not put anything between the emery and the clamp plate, such as rubber or newspaper. Put the fine emery on next, with the grinding side facing down, followed by the other disc grinding side down with glue spread evenly. Put on the washer and bolt and tighten firmly with your grinding spanner. Tighten only using your hands and do not over-tighten by hitting the spanner. Heiniger double-sided disc clamps need to have 2 discs used to set. You cannot set one alone. Wipe away any excess glue with a rag. Check your papers are set. Check the disc by lightly tapping the emery and listening for a hollow sound where the emery has not stuck to the disc. These are bubbles. This is what a correctly glued emery should sound like. If you hear this sound, then your emery has bubbles. Do not grind on the disc if the papers have bubbles. Attach the discs to the grinder. Make sure that the boss and flange of the disc is clean of any debris, such as excess glue. It's also important to check the grinder shaft. After cleaning, it can be a good idea to apply a few drops of oil to the shaft. Put the disc onto the shaft, followed by the washer and grinding nut. There is a left and right hand thread nut for each side. Tighten the grinder nuts firmly. Check to make sure your discs are tight by making sure that they do not spin in the opposite directions. As the disc spins and a comb and cutter are ground from side to side with the correct pressure, they will take the shape of the disc. In this example, we have drawn an egg shape to elaborate the hollow which forms into a comb and cutter. If your pendulum length is too short, you can see that the hollow will run through your disc diagonally. And if your pendulum length is too long, the hollow will also run through your comb diagonally. The cutter side is just as important and needs to be set at the correct height so the radius travels through the middle. Setting up the grinder to grind combs. Heiniger pendulums are double-sided. The comb side has pins closer to the pressure bar. Attach your comb to the comb side. The power handles have magnets in them, which hold your comb and cutter in place. With the grinder turned off and the comb in place, push the pendulum towards the grinding disc. The heel of the comb needs to touch the disc first. With the heel of the comb just touching the disc, adjust the pendulum hanger until there is a 1.5mm or a matchstick thickness between the tip of the comb and the paper. The grinder is now set. Setting the length of your pendulum. Remove the comb from the pendulum and place your blue Heiniger radius gauge onto the pendulum pins, making sure that the smallest end is closest to the shaft. Return your comb back onto the pendulum comb pins and place your comb onto the disc where you will finish your grind. Keeping your comb on the disc, adjust your pendulum up or down until the red line runs through the center of the motor shaft. Remove the comb and gauge, then retighten your pendulum. The pendulum length is now set. Grinding combs on the disc. Sparks from grinding can cause eye damage. Always wear safety glasses and ear protection when grinding. If you are right-handed, put your right foot forward, and if you are left-handed, lead with your left foot, which should be in line with your shoulder and the pendulum. When your comb lands on the disc, it is good practice to remove the knuckle of your index finger and allow your thumb to give firm, even pressure. Using even pressure, land your comb on the inside of the disc and grind to as far on the outside as possible. With every swipe, grind until the edge of the pendulum head is in line with the edge of the disc. This is important because it will ensure your papers wear evenly. You need to grind your combs until they are sharp. With good light, hold your comb on an angle so that you can see the cutting edges. Make sure that there are no white lines reflecting from the cutting edge. A simple method to identify a correct hollow in your combs is by using no downwards pressure and only the weight of the comb. Lightly rub the comb from side to side on a fine Heiniger silicon carbide checking stone. In good light, you will be able to see that the stone has made contact evenly and should touch along the left and right sides at the top and the bottom. Now we will grind cutters. Remember to rotate your power handle to the other side where your pins will be lower. Fit the cutter to the pendulum and place the cutter onto the disc. Lightly slide the cutter across the disc using a grinding action. If the pendulum hanger is too far out, the cutter will only rub up on the tips or the heel. Adjust the pendulum hanger in or out so that your cutter is rubbing up on the tip and the heel at the same time. Remove the cutter from the pendulum and place the same blue Heiniger gauge onto the pendulum pins, making sure the smallest end is nearest to the shaft. Place your cutter back onto the pendulum over the gauge and place your cutter onto the disc where you will finish your grind. Adjust your pendulum length up or down so that the red line runs through the center of the shaft. Tighten your pendulum and it is now set. With the grinder turned on and making sure you are wearing your protective eyewear and earplugs, position yourself in front of your grinder as you did to grind combs. Holding the pendulum with the knuckle of your index finger directly under your thumb, land your cutter on the disc nearest to the shaft. Using an even moderate pressure, grind from side to side, making sure you use all of the paper by grinding as far from the middle of the disc to the outside as possible. Grind the cutter until it is sharp, keeping the same pressure at all times. On the last stroke, move the cutter from the center where you started to the outside where you set your pendulum length. Then remove the cutter from the disc. When is the cutter sharp? Check that you have a slight burr on all 4 tips that move up and down when you touch them. Make sure that the whole surface of the cutter is ground and that there are no dull spots. If in doubt, grind again. Repeat the Heiniger stone test by very lightly rubbing your cutter backwards and forwards. Turn the cutter over and observe with good light. Make sure that the cutter has rubbed up on all 4 tips and down to the bottom corners. This will show you that you have the correct hollow. Head to our website for more information.